A full load of content coming for you today on Locked On Grizzlies. We're finally here. We made it. Free agency day is here. We're going to talk about some of the biggest targets on the free agent market and how can this Grizzlies team improve. And also, I'm going to give you a summer update. I had a one-on-one with Ja Morant, and we talked about a few interesting things about the Grizzlies going into next season. Coming up on Locked On Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host, Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal here in Memphis, Tennessee, covering your Memphis Grizzlies. First off and foremost, we appreciate you for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listen and watch each and every day. We cannot thank you enough. Continue to like, comment, subscribe, and, stay connected with us so we can know how to improve the show for you, and we can know what you want to talk about, what you want to hear about on the future Locked On Grizzlies episodes during this long off season. But right now, we're kind of in the best part of the off season, and that is draft/free agency. We covered the draft last week. The Grizzlies picked up 4 new players through the draft, got a kind of notable player after the draft, and Kenneth Lofton signed him to a 2-way deal. So a stacked roster potentially going into Summer League. We're going to talk about more of that as time gets closer. I will be heading to Summer League as well. But right now, at this very moment, we're going to talk about free agency because it's that time. It's Thursday. Free agency is finally here. Before we talk about free agency, though, we want to talk about Arcade 1-Up because, see, Locked On Grizzlies is partnering with Arcade 1-Up to give away 3 free NBA Jam Shack machines. That's right, 3. If you've seen these machines that they're giving away, they're not cheap and they're fun. These are the guys known for making the incredible retro 3/4 scale at-home arcade games, like Pac-Man, Golden Tee, and many more. You want to win? Well, here's your chance to enter. Go to arcade1up.com/locked-on. Again, arcade1up.com/locked-on and to enter for your chance to win an Arcade 1-Up machine. So yeah, free agency is here. This is one of the most exciting times of the year because you're adding to your team, and the Grizzlies, as we've seen in the past, they usually do pretty good at this time. The Grizzlies in the Zach Kleiman era, we've seen them, not add too much, but hit on the marginal gains to improve the team just enough. So what will this offseason look like? Well, first, let's address what we've talked about the most, and that's the Tyus Jones situation. There have been recent updates, right? There have been recent updates in this situation. So on the last episode, we talked about if Tyus Jones leaves. If Tyus Jones leaves, who should the Memphis Grizzlies target? And we gave some great names, right? I saw some of the comments that Locked On Grizzlies followers were leaving, and, they like some of the options. But, of course, I think we all agree Tyus Jones is priority. But, Dennis Schroeder, Ricky Rubio, Rajon Rondo, DeLon Wright, Goran Dragic, 5 of the names that I mentioned on our previous Locked On Grizzlies episode as decent options. But let's get back to the point here. John Wall is planning to sign with the Clippers per reports. Monte Morris was just traded from Denver to Washington, another point guard hungry team. The New York Knicks are going all in on Jalen Brunson, preparing to offer him over $100 million on a multi-year contract, according to multiple reports. With all of that being said, the point guard market for starters is drying up. It's really drying up, and you start to wonder, who is left out there to give Tyus Jones a starting contract at substantial value as in above the mid-level exception. So we're talking above 10, $11 million a year. We're talking a $12 million deal, $13 million deal. Who out there can give Tyus Jones that type of deal? And with all these point guards, as I just mentioned, Monty Morris, that trade was huge. We figured Washington would be involved. The New York Knicks, another team, figured they would kind of be involved. They zeroed in on their guy. They want Jalen Brunson. The fact that the point guard market is drying up definitely increases the chances of Tyus Jones returning to Memphis. But I'm going to add one little caveat because I don't want everyone to say, oh, there are no starting spots left. He's coming back. It's not going to be that simple. I'm going to tell you why. Here's the thing. There's a backup role, there's a reserve role, and there's sort of the six-man role. Tyus Jones in Memphis, was more of the backup reserve type guy. What that means is Ja Morant doesn't play. He stepped in, was a very capable starter. But when Ja Morant played, very limited playing time for Tyus Jones, as we saw in the regular season and during stretches of the playoffs, even though the Grizzlies tried to get them on the court, more together through stretches of that Timberwolves series and whatnot. But my point is that another team could offer Tyus Jones a bigger bench role that may be enticing to him. Would it be enticing to me? Not that much. But I'll give you an example because we love to give examples here. Let's take Ricky Rubio for last season. Ricky Rubio played in Cleveland with the Cleveland Cavaliers, came off the bench theoretically in 34 games, averaged 28 and a half minutes off the bench. If there's a team out there that says, hey, Tyus, look, so-and-so is our starter, but we want to play you guys together, and we have 26, 27 minutes off the bench available for you, that may be a desirable situation because we know in Memphis, Tyus Jones played 21 minutes this past season, which was his highest in his 3 seasons in Memphis, but also it was the most games he started as well. So combine those two factors, 21 minutes per game, but he started, I believe it was 23 games this past season. It's a lot to weigh in there in terms of what Tyus Jones will value. But at the end of the day, I do like his chances now more than at any point after the season. I think this is the best chance that the Grizzlies have at Tyus Jones coming back. I think if you're the Grizzlies, you jump on it fast, or because you kind of I feel like Tyus Jones, the way when he talked to us at the exit interviews, he's probably going to take his time, be a little deliberate with his decision. But I think the Grizzlies let him know initially, we want you back. Send the offer and let him go from there. I've seen the players, they've all spoken highly of him. Ja Morant, as I said, we'll get later on into the episode. We're going to talk more about Ja Morant after I had an exclusive one-on-one conversation with him recently. And his desire for Tyus Jones, not just to come back, but to be, in a situation that allows him to exceed. So we think that situation can be Memphis. As we saw this past season, Tyus Jones played really good basketball. A lot of people like Kennedy Chandler. That's another player who the Grizzlies drafted 38 overall, future backup point guard here. A lot of people like what he brings to the table and are saying, dude, how long do you sign Tyus Jones in order to not block Kennedy Chandler? Or if you block Kennedy Chandler, you basically just wasted a 38 pick. So a lot of things to weigh overall when it comes to this free agent market. But I think when we talk about need on this Grizzly team, it's going to start with that 2-guard position. It's going to start with maybe adding one more forward in the upcoming free agency period. I have a list of names. We're going to talk about some guys who the Grizzlies can add through free agency, and some of the names you're actually going to be really familiar with. So we'll talk about that next. But before we get to that, I want to talk to you about Sakara. See, Sakara is a wellness company that's anchored in food as medicine. And Sakara is also on a mission to nourish your body through the power of plants. So we're talking about giving you the tools and the need to transform your life with their organic, ready-to-eat meal delivery program and functional wellness essentials. So basically, the thing about Sakara is they're nutritionally designed. Their chef calf breakfasts, the lunches, and the dinners are made with powerful plant-rich ingredients. What do these do? Well, they help boost your energy. They support your digestive system, and they curb your sugar cravings, and they get your skin, glowing, looking real good for these summer months. And it's all delivered right to your door, ready to eat. How do you get it? Well, right now, Sakara is offering our listeners 20% off their first order when they go to sakara.com/locked on 20. Well, you hear me again. All you have to do is go to sakara.com/locked on 20. Sakara is spelled Sakara. That's SAKARA.com/locked on 20 to get 20% off your first order for Sakara. And also, if you don't want to do that, there's another option for you as well. If you want to go to checkout and you're going to Sakara, all you have to do is enter the code locked on 20 at checkout. So you can go to sakara.com, place your order, and then when you get to checkout, locked on 20 will get the job done. So we mentioned, targets, right? Targets for the Grizzlies. We talked about the point guards. We are not about to talk about the point guards right now. We've done that. We did that on the last episode, Locked on Grizzlies. I mentioned DeLon Wright, Goran Dragic, Dennis Schroeder, Rajon Rondo. There are options out there who the Grizzlies can pursue if Tyus Jones doesn't sign back, or if they just simply say, hey, we want a cheaper option because the Desmond Bane extension is coming. The Ja Morant extension will be coming in a matter of days. And you could potentially, extend guys like Dylan Brooks, Brandon Clark. Contract decisions have to be made really soon. But we're here to talk about some potential free agent ads. And with the Grizzlies, as I said earlier, we're talking about marginal ads. We did see in the last 24 hours, James Harden, Bradley Beal both opted out of contracts. I think that has little to no impact on what's going on in Memphis. The Grizzlies have their shooting guard and Desmond Bane on a very affordable contract over the next couple of years. That's their guy. He plays really well with Ja Morant. Those guys, primarily shooting guards. Both guys really need the ball in their hands a lot. James Harden, particularly. Bradley Beal, we have seen him operate without having the ball in his hand as much as he has in recent years, and he's played really well in both roles. So with that being said, without further ado, here are some of the free agent targets, at guards and forwards that we think the Grizzlies should pursue through free agent. I'm going to start with the guards because we're talking about two guards, right? So these are guys who, in the Grizzlies situation, you want someone who can play make a little bit, who can, score some off the dribble, who can just add more flexibility to the roster. This is the guy that you would essentially replace DeAnthony Melton with. DeAnthony Melton's departure, through the trade for David Roddy in the NBA draft created a hole at two guard and kind of hurt the depth. Now you have a couple natural two guards on the roster, and that's Dylan Brooks and Desmond Bane. Both of those guys are in the starting lineup. So you got to get creative, right? Move Zaire Williams over to the shooting guard position some. John Conchar, Vince Williams, who you drafted in the second round this year out of VCU. All of those guys are options. But we're talking about what they can do through free agency. A couple guys that come to mind off the top of my head, Victor Oladipo and Gary Harris. We're going to touch on Victor Oladipo first. Victor Oladipo played with the Miami Heat this season. As we know, he's been missed a lot of the past couple years. Quad injuries, knee injuries, and whatnot have really hampered him. And you wondered, Victor Oladipo, when he came in the NBA, his explosiveness was one of his best traits, right? We're talking about a guy, who was really explosive in his prime and, was dangerous. Like, he had some really good seasons in OKC. He had some really good seasons with the Pacers. I'm talking all NBA third team player with the Pacers. and played with the Heat. They kind of worked him into the rotation, and in the playoffs, really made a big impact. Made a big impact in the playoffs, but it was mainly through his defense. So with the Heat, only 8 regular season games played this past season. So with Victor Oladipo, you're talking about a guy in the last 2 seasons has played 41 games, 33 games a couple seasons ago, 8 games this past season. Then this year before that, played 19 games. Then the year before that, in 2018, 2019, 36 games. Victor Oladipo played 75 games in 2017, 2018, and that was pretty much his last healthy season. So 4 years, and health is the biggest question, and that's why I think Victor Oladipo is a good bet. For one, you're betting on this guy. He's coming off the bench. His stats, his numbers in terms of his shooting numbers, not too much different. He shot over 48% in those 8 games with the Miami Heat, shot well from three-point range. Defensively, he gave Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown some trouble. Go look at that series, Celtics and the Heat. He at times, I mean, he was a pest defensively. He actually put out a video showing how good he was defensively in that series. But I think that's your guy if you want someone who can be a combo guard, defensive intensity, and you'd be betting on him to get closer to form over the course of a full season, full off season as well. I think Victor Oladipo is a strong bet to make some money this season and kind of, good bang for your buck. Gary Harris is another guy. Gary Harris, a lot of Grizzlies fans, you may remember him from his time in Denver with the Nuggets. Great defender in those days and reliable shooter. And he's even better at it now. So he's been in Orlando the past couple years. So he was involved in the trade for Aaron Gordon. When the Nuggets acquired Aaron Gordon, they let, Gary Harris go. And all he's done in his past season, reduced role because he's playing with a team that basically, is emphasizing playing the younger players. Over 11 points per game. We talked about his defense. It's still there. Shot 38% from three-point range. This is your 3-and-D guy in terms of, you talk about a consistent guy, and you talk about a guy who's going to get after it defensively. 6'4", long arms. We've seen him, give some of the top-tier shooting guards in the Western Conference trouble when Denver, when he was on those Denver teams. I think this is a sneaky good pickup as well. He's a veteran. He's going to want to be put in a winning situation. Now let's have fun with it, all right? Let's have some fun with it. Here's a guy that I like personally. I don't know if this guy will be appeasing to the Grizzlies. The first 2 guys really make sense for the Grizzlies just based on what the Grizzlies like. Gonna throw another guy out there, Lance Stephenson. So the thing with Lance Stephenson, came back with the Pacers this season after basically missing a couple years in the NBA. He played overseas in China and was a star out there, quite frankly. But comes back to the NBA, gets a few games with the Hawks, catches on with the Pacers, and kind of takes off. Averages over 9 points a game with the Pacers. And, over 4 assists. He has all these flashy highlight passes that people get to see. But here's what I like about Lance Stephenson that I think, kind of goes in part and catches the attention of the Grizzlies. It's the versatility, right? Versatility has been the theme of the Grizzlies offseason, where they talked about Jake LaRavia, Kennedy Chandler playing on and off the ball, David Roddy playing the 3, playing the 4, potentially playing the small ball 5, Vince Williams being a big wing who can play multiple positions. Lance Stephenson embodies that. This is a guy we've seen play point guard. This is a guy we've seen play shooting guard. This is a guy we've seen play small forward. He's 6'6", 220, 230 pounds. Plenty of size for the shooting or small forward position. The playmaking has always been there. Even since coming out of college, he's always been regarded as a guy, with playmaking ability for a big guard. He averaged 5 assists, I think it was, when he played with the Pelicans at one point in this past season, averaged 4 assists in a reduced role. We're talking about 4 assists playing 18 minutes a game, with the Indiana Pacers. But personality-wise, we all know Lance Stephenson throughout his NBA career has been known as a big personality. In a way, I think that fits the Grizzlies locker room. You're talking about, you have a lot of outgoing guys on this locker room who, like to talk trash, like to have fun. I mean, and Lance Stephenson, one of the NBA's vets, I think he embodies that as much. as most NBA players. Shooting wise, you know, only shot 31% from 3-point range. So he's not the guy you want in terms of that. And we've talked about multiple times how shooting is one of the Grizzlies, uh, one of the things they're trying to improve on most this season, as they did throughout the draft, picking up 4 guys who shot over 38% from 3-point range. Lance Stephenson doesn't give you that. But those are some of the options that you talk about at the shooting guard position. And then there's the forwards position as well. There's a couple more names who come to mind. TJ Warren. There's another guy. If you see a theme here, we're trying to go all out risk reward with these guys. There are guys out here who you talk about with TJ Warren. Hasn't really played since the bubble, right? Hasn't really played since the bubble. This is another guy who in the right situation will excel. This is a bucket. TJ Warren, throughout most of his career, double-digit points per game, one of the better mid-range shooters in the NBA. Recently, I believe it was that bubble season when he went to the Pacers, he added a three-pointer, and he was actually really good at it. TJ Warren is one of the best buckets, I think, in the NBA. That's a guy who I like as a target. And then there are the veterans, right? We talk about the 3-and-D guys. So Kyle Anderson, long arms, brought plenty of size, could play the 3, play the 4. If Kyle Anderson isn't the guy the Grizzlies want to bring back, who is the potential guy that fits in that veteran forward role to go with David Roddy, to go with Jake LaRavia? Nick Batum and Otto Porter are 2 names that come to mind. Nick Batum, of course, 6'8", 6'9", long arms, plays multiple positions. We saw him play the 3 and 4 at the Clippers, and even some small ball 5 when the Clippers went super small, as they did a lot this season, and as they did against Karl Anthony Towns and the Timberwolves, and had some success in that role. Otto Porter Jr., we saw him a lot this past year. Golden State Warrior, NBA champion, one of the better shooters in terms of bigger small forwards in the NBA, and he's played a lot of power forward. So both of those guys, those are 2 veterans who I think the Grizzlies could hold on to. But free agency, it's almost here, right? 5 p.m. Central Time is when negotiations can begin. We're going to talk more about free agency. We're going to talk about whatever news comes about on tomorrow. But before we get to that, we got to talk about Ja Morant and what he did, for the city of Memphis. I talked to him about it. I had a one-on-one. That's coming up next. But before we get to that, I want to talk to you about BetOnline as well. See, BetOnline is your premier betting site for any and everything. That's where you should get your info. It's the number one source for all your betting needs, all your sports info. You want to know who's projected to win what game, who is favored over who are the big dogs, who are the big and bad teams in the leagues. BetOnline is where you go. Right now, I'm heavily invested in BetOnline through Major League Baseball. Just checked out a couple games today just to see who's projected to win what. My Atlanta Braves are 2 games up on the Phillies right now. Won the first 2 games of the series, but Philadelphia Phillies are projected to win this next game according to BetOnline. Also, a couple interesting series about to take place. Maybe an ALCS preview between the Yankees and the Astros. I think the Yankees are slight favorites in that game. Then we also have a couple more interesting games with the Padres, Dodgers. Some interesting bets are available on BetOnline, so go check those out. And it's not just baseball. It's not just baseball. BetOnline has you covered through all your sporting events. So we're talking about BetOnline being the fastest and easiest way to check in on your favorite sports events, and that includes sports like MMA, boxing, golf. Wherever you want to go, BetOnline is where the game starts. Just go head on over now to betonline.net, see what you like, and go from there. So it's the off season, and during the off season, players can kind of pour into their communities more and do some of those good charitable events that really go a long way in how they are viewed and just how they are remembered in terms of by franchises. And Ja Morant, has done his part in Memphis over the past couple of years in really trying to establish those grounds. And he took another step this week. So Morant partnered with Coca-Cola Consolidated and Body Armor to refurbish 13 courts in the Memphis area. And this is a big deal. 13 outdoor basketball courts, with the main court being the Mount Moriah Precinct's Halley Park. So 13 courts overall. I believe there were 9 total locations impacted by this. I have a story on commercialappeal.com that really goes further into detail about what the courts look like, the full change of what it means and how Ja Morant interacted with the kids. And it's just a great, it's a great thing for Memphis, but it's a great thing to see Ja Morant really take that in. I compared it to, as a kid growing up in Memphis, I saw Zach Randolph, Penny Hardaway come to my high schools, just, Penny Hardaway more for the basketball games, but Zach Randolph would just show up, fist bump guys in the hallway while we were going to classrooms and things like that. And those are the things you remember, as kids growing up in Memphis. And I think Ja Morant, over 120 kids were at Halley Park that day when Ja Morant arrived. He played one-on-one against a few kids, played one-on-one against about 5 kids. Then he helped the kids go through some drills, was very engaged in the event. But I talked to Morant off to the side for a few minutes, and we had a few interesting things to talk about. One of those things was Golden State and Memphis. So, the entire offseason, all of the talk about, is it a budding rivalry? Or, because Ja Morant and Draymond Green trading Twitter jabs, or Klay Thompson in his post-game press conference right after the Warriors won a championship, saying, hey, basically calling a Grizzlies player that he didn't name a bum for tweeting out strength in numbers, which is a popular Warriors moniker from their earlier 2015-2016 days. And then, just the back and forth between Ja and just the history, right? Andre Iguodala being traded to the Grizzlies and basically not wanting to play in Memphis because he wanted to go to a so-called contender, ended up on the Miami Heat, but got booed this season when he played in Memphis. Then you talk about, Steph Curry and Ja Morant, when that trade initially went down, traded, a couple little posts on their Instagram stories and things like that. So there's been some little chatter. Then there was the play-in last season, right? A couple years ago. The play-in game where the Grizzlies beat the Warriors, put the Warriors out, and the Warriors didn't make the postseason. Past season, the Warriors got revenge on the bigger stage, beat the Grizzlies 4-2 in the Western Conference semifinals, and all the things that happened in that series, right? Dylan Brooks, flagrant fouls, technical fouls, Gary Payton the second getting hurt, Ja Morant getting hurt. And then the question of both of those plays, were they dirty, were they intentional, and everything that went behind that. But all leads to I asked Ja Morant. And Ja Morant he was ready. He was prepared, and he said, look, that's no rivalry. So if Ja Morant says there's no rivalry, then I don't think we can say the Grizzlies and the Warriors are a rivalry right now. He basically said, look, we're focused on us. Those were his words. The Grizzlies, he said, they're not running from smoke, as he said all season. They're not going to run from the smoke. Whatever team, talks back to the Grizzlies, they're going to talk back. And they're not going to run from it. But they do not consider the Golden State rival, according to Ja Morant. We also touched on DeAnthony Melton. Now, there's the on-court production, right? A lot of people see that. DeAnthony Melton averaged over 10 points a game, started early in the season, really streaky shooter. I know everyone's talked about his inconsistencies in the playoffs and not showing up the past couple playoff runs. Yes, we all see that. What we all don't see, and I get to see it somewhat, being sitting courtside before the games, watching how Ja Morant and DeAnthony Melton interact, is that was one of Ja Morant's closest friends on the team. And so I got to talk to Ja Morant about that because, as I've written a lot throughout this season, they are close friends. And actually, right after that trade was announced, Ja Morant and DeAnthony Melton were on the phone talking. And, he said he's going to miss him. Ja Morant said he's going to really miss him, but, they're going to remain close. And he said, I was kind of joking with him because Ja Morant and DeAnthony Melton would often come out before games, dance together. As I've written before, the Grizzlies are big NBA YoungBoy fans. The rapper, they're big fans of his music. A lot of times you see DeAnthony Melton and Ja Morant dancing together, kind of like a tag team duo. singing lyrics together and things like that. So I was just joking with him. I was like, well, who replaces Desmond? I mean, not Desmond Bain, DeAnthony Melton in that role. Desmond Bain actually was one of the names he mentioned, and then he mentioned Zaire Williams as guys, who have that upbeat energy, who can keep that going. So the Grizzlies have, a good thing going, but DeAnthony Melton, from a chemistry perspective, he was a big part of this team. I just, hope that most of the, Grizzlies fans and all the viewers on here, you understand that he was a crucial part to what this Grizzlies team had going on in the locker room, as well as, his contributions on the court. We also talked some about Tyus Jones, and we talked about just the summer. Tyus Jones, of course, he wants the best for Tyus Jones and would like to see him come back. One of my notable takeaways is we talked a lot about earlier this year. I did an episode on Zaire Williams, and if you missed that, go check it out as well. But we did a Locked On Grizzlies episode on this being the offseason of Zaire Williams. Desmond Bain, in his exit interview right after the Grizzlies lost to the Warriors, basically said, I'm paraphrasing here, but he's going to push Zaire Williams. He's going to make sure he gets up. He wants Zaire Williams to have that type of offseason. Zaire Williams and Desmond Bain have been working out. You know who else has been working out with them? Ja Morant. Ja Morant has been in Memphis lately, and you haven't seen the videos of this. You've seen the videos of Morant having his fun on the road, and then you've seen some of this private workout stuff where his team, shot by 9, and those guys, occasionally post. What you haven't seen is Ja Morant, Desmond Bain, and Zaire Williams all in the gym together working on their games. Well, you're hearing it from me. Ja Morant said that's been going on, and Summer League is on the way, so we're gonna see how this really benefits Zaire Williams. Desmond Bain is really pushing him. Ja Morant, from what I could tell, is really pushing him as well. They really want Zaire Williams to kind of have that second-year jump that we've seen those guys have. And in Ja Morant's case, he even had a big third-year jump as well. So we're going to see how that operates for Desmond Bain. But we appreciate you for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies each and every week. Next up, I told you, next up on our next Locked On Grizzlies episode, we're going to have a lot to talk about with free agency, right? Some things might go down usually in the first day. We're going to see how fast the ball gets rolling out here in the NBA circles. But before you go, we thank you for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listen. But your second listen needs to be Locked On NBA. See, Locked On NBA, this is where you get your latest news, rumors, updates, all just 30 minutes around the league. I just mentioned it's free agency time, right? You want to keep up with everything that's going on around the league, and you only have a few minutes to spare. Locked On NBA is where you go. We're going to keep you posted on everything that impacts the Grizzlies over here on Locked On Grizzlies. So any move that impacts the Grizzlies, we got you covered. Locked On NBA is where you go just to get a better glance of what's going on around the entire NBA's association. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you. As I said, free agency coverage up next. I'll head out to Summer League next week. We'll have you covered with all that. But thank you for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies.